This is the video for the Try It section of Lesson 12, Automating Procedures with Workbook Events. In this lesson, you write a workbook level before print procedure that instructs Excel to not print a particular range of confidential data that resides on a particular worksheet. In this example, what we have is a workbook with 3 sheets on it, and here is sheet 1, sheet 2, and sheet 3. Now sheet 3 has a particular range here from B5 to D12 in this fictional company called Widgets Inc. And in this area here is confidential data that you don't want to have show up on a piece of paper that gets printed out if someone wants to print this worksheet. So the object of the before print procedure will be that if anyone tries to print this sheet, everything will show up except in this range that I've selected from B5 to D12. It's got these people's social security numbers, annual salaries, and office safe combinations. To get started, what you will do is go to the Visual Basic Editor, and hitting the Alt F11 keys is a fast way to do that. Over here on this side of the VBE is usually the VBA project window. If you don't see it, and I'm going to close it right now, if by chance you don't see it, press the Control R keys, or from the menu click View and Project Explorer. Now in 99.9% of the cases of a workbook that you will see, the workbook module will be named this workbook. And where you'll find it is in your project window, and here is your project in bold. Expand the Microsoft Excel objects folder of that project and find this workbook module. You can either double click this or right click and select View Code, and now you are in the module of the actual workbook. Workbooks have modules. Each worksheet has its own module, and then there are standard modules as well and class modules. This is the workbook module. Now, similar to what you did when you were composing a worksheet change event in Lesson 11, here you're going to go up to the Object Fields drop-down list and select Workbook. There's yet another default that will appear when you do that, and this time for the workbook level event it is the workbook open event that VBA presents us with. Ignore that for a moment. Come on over here to the procedure drop down list, and there are quite a few procedures at the workbook level. They're alphabetized, so we'll head on our way up to the before print procedure. Go ahead and just single click that to select it, and there is the before print subline and the end subline after that with an empty space for us to be able to type in some code. We're going to deliver this, we're going to delete this workbook open unnecessary code and add a few spaces to enter in some code. So here is what's happening. To recap, you have a worksheet. There it is. It's on sheet 3 that you care about. You don't care about controlling any data that gets printed on sheet 2 or sheet 1. Only sheet 3. So going back to the VBE, the first line of code that you will want to enter for this procedure is to allow for any sheet besides sheet 3 to go ahead and print. No problem. All you care about is sheet 3. So the code line for that will be if active sheet dot name does not equal sheet 3, then exit sub. That way, if it equals sheet 2 or sheet 1 or some other sheet, then when someone tries to print it, it'll print as usual and no problem at all. So if a sheet is attempted to be printed at this point in the macro or the procedure, then it must be sheet 3 because you've excluded all the other sheet 3s here, all the other non-sheet 3s here. You see that there's a cancel argument in the parameters for before print. So you can use that to your advantage by clicking cancel equals true. And what this just did is have VBA tell Excel that it's not going to print any sheet that's named sheet 3. It will eventually, but for right now we have to interrupt the printing process and disable the events. You saw this in lesson 11, because eventually you are going to be printing part of sheet 3, not all of it, but you'll still be printing something. And if you're going to be printing something, you'll be invoking again the before print procedure, and you don't want to have to do that. That'll again put you into a loop that you don't want to be in, an infinite loop, and we are going to just say enable events equals false. Your confidential data resides in range B5 to D12. You can temporarily format that range with 3 semicolons to make those cells unable to display their contents. If you're not sure about what I just said means, I'm going to take a look here again at in fact, we'll take any cells. We'll take these in a mix of them. I'm going to right click here after I've selected them, click Format Cells, and in case you didn't know this, if you click on the number tab, the custom item, and in this small field I'm going to enter in 3 semicolon characters, and what that does is render the contents of those cells as invisible. So I'm going to undo that here because I only wanted to show that as an example. What will be happening is that really the VBA code that we are writing is going to do that for this range here, and then it's going to print the sheet, and then it's going to reestablish the general format type that was in that sheet in these cells here before we printed. And then the worksheet will look the same before it got printed and after it got printed, but during the process these numbers here will not be visible because they'll be formatted with those 3 semicolons. Going back to the VBE, the code to do that is actually very simple. We'll say range B5 to D12, then the dot number format equals, and in quotes it's 3 semicolons. Now it's okay to print the sheet. What I'm going to do here for demonstration purposes is not exactly print it. I'm going to print preview it so it'll show up better with the results of our code on this video. If you're going to try this, then instead of print preview you will be typing out print out. But here we'll use print preview just for purposes of the video. Now that the worksheet 3 has been printed, you'll reinstate the general format that was in B5 to D12 like that. Range B5 to D12 is the number format of general, and before you complete all of your work you'll want to set the application enable events back to true. And instead of typing, a lot of times I just copy and paste, back up a little bit, and then enter true. And that is it. That is how you can control how a worksheet will print. So I'm going to press Alt-Q to go back to the worksheet and click some other cell here, some other worksheet rather. If I were to press the Control P keys, that will bring up this print sheet, this print view in Excel 2010. I'm going to click the print button and you can see that there is no problem at all. It prints and there you are. Now the real issue is what happens when worksheet 3 is attempted to be printed. I'm going to do the same thing, and if I print here, I know you can see that this data is in here. However, if I actually click the print button, there you see, and we've got it in print preview now, that this data here has been temporarily removed. The sheet will print, and then the data will be reinstated back onto the worksheet as soon as the printing is done. So that is one example of the before print workbook level procedure that can hide confidential data that you want to have printed.